Okay, so we'll start. Okay, so I want to start with talking for a second about what's the purpose of this session. It's not about good or bad technologies. What I want to talk about is a bit about how EIPs, like the Ethereum proposals, a lot of times when we think about them in a closed world of Ethereum, like the EVMs, the EIPs, how do EIPs interact, right? But sometimes those technologies, they have good or bad combinations with other technologies that are not necessarily part of Ethereum, but are just out there, right? And I think this is an angle to look at EIPs, specifically this one, which like I've been heavily involved in, so I have a lot of opinions on it, and most of them are favorable. But yeah, so I think it's like an angle, right? Like so, and we can apply that angle to other EIPs as well. It doesn't only relate to 7702, but 7702 is a really interesting case study, I think. Great. So 2 words about myself. As mentioned, I'm the VP of Technology at Fireblocks. I know at these conferences, not every time everybody knows Fireblocks. So Fireblocks is a very big provider of infrastructure for companies building on the blockchain. We work with a lot of institutions. It's either companies who build on the blockchains or companies that use the blockchain. And as you can see, we're basically, like a lot of our technologies build around an MPC wallet, but actually there's a lot of other things as well, because we tailor to the use case. We talk to users are companies. A lot of the companies you use when you touch crypto use Fireblocks beneath the surface. Okay, great. So, we started with talking about the account, right? So there's 2 kinds of accounts in Ethereum. I'm not going to go deep into this, but like there's the EOAs, there's the smart contracts, and basically each one has one advantage, one disadvantage. EOA can start transactions, but it cannot execute code. Smart contracts can execute code, but cannot start transaction, right? This is kind of the beginning of our story. And even though it seems like they're 1-1, we constantly hear EOAs are bad. You don't want to use an EOA. EOA is bad. We need to remove them. And here's a bunch of reasons why EOAs are not good, right? Single point of failure, your seed phrase, if you lose it, if it's stolen, you lose all of your money. No backup, no recovery built into this, no security built into the account. So some might say EOAs are not secure. You have to hold ETH to make a transaction, so onboarding is really hard because you need to get ETH. How do you get ETH? No batching support, no gasless support, no permission and access control. Any transaction, or they're all the same on chain. No session keys. There's a bunch more, right? So like, there's a bunch of reasons people say why EOAs are bad. And to make things worse, somebody came in and said, oh, actually, you know the one problem that smart contracts had where they cannot send transactions? We solved it. Slightly different, it's a bit complicated, but with the introduction of ERC-4337, to some extent, smart contracts or smart contract wallets can execute a transaction, can send a transaction. Again, people who are familiar with 4337 understand there's a bit of complexity behind the scenes. Doesn't matter though. It does allow you to send a transaction. So given all of the shortcomings of EOAs and the fact we just solved the problem of smart contracts, you would expect it would be an easy decision for people to start just using smart contract wallets all the time. Maybe we don't even need the EOA, right? Like maybe we should throw it out. I know it's not as like it hasn't been actively pushed, but like a lot of people are thinking that like we don't need the EOA anymore. Like we have a better solution. But actually, there's a few things that are good about EOAs. And we don't talk about them a lot. So here's a list of a few. First of all, EOAs cost 0 to create, okay? You just create a key, and you have an EOA. It doesn't cost you any gas. You can create them on multiple chains, free, still free. It's the cheapest one to transact. It is still meaningfully cheaper than smart contract wallets, especially on a more expensive chain. Obviously, on a cheaper chain, it's less important. There's a lot of tools around the EOAs, right? If you want to simulate a transaction of an EOA, if you want to, like, you want to safeguard, there's just so many tools built around the EOAs. There's not a lot of tools yet built around other smart contracts, and there's a lot of smart contracts. If you even have a tool, he will not necessarily support all different smart contracts implementations. There's maturity around the EOA ecosystem, and maturity matters, right? So like tools are battle tested, they've been there for a while, we know how they work. Also, we have processes. Like we as people, but also companies, we have processes around EOAs. They support all dApps. Even today, smart contract wallets do not support every dApp because some dApps cannot be modified, right? So like there's immutable dApps that will never support smart contract wallets. If you have locked value somehow, right, whether if it's in some DeFi protocol, whether if it's thing you hold, your reputation, all of those things, if you want to move wallets to a smart contract wallet, you need to basically give that up. Right? You need to maybe take money out of the DeFi protocol it's in, move it to the new wallet, put it back in. You're not necessarily getting the same conditions. So things can change. And you can sign messages. Now, signing messages sound like it has been replaced by EIP-7702 for people familiar. But actually, signing messages is a capability that people use. They use it in identity products, unrelated to even the blockchain. So like the signing aspect of it is also important. So there's advantages to an EOA, okay? Like we don't like to talk about it, but there's advantages. And so the comparison is a bit more complex, okay? This is obviously not an extensive list, but it's like, it's a complex decision. What do I want? Do I want an EOA? Do I want a smart contract wallet? And you would expect it maybe to be 50-50, but actually 99.99%, and this is like a year ago, right? So it's not necessarily, and this is a comparison specifically to account abstraction wallets, not all smart wallets, but just as a point, right? And specifically it's from a year ago because I didn't want the new things around 772 to impact the data, right? This was the stage of adoption like a year ago for account abstraction. And I'm not saying it's because the technology is not good, just to be clear, but like this is obviously what like people have been doing. And there's, now, another idea came in, right? Like account abstraction is something a lot of people wanted to push, but it would push in a very specific way, the 4337 way, which is turn and replace. Like drop this thing, use this thing instead, it's better. And the turn and replace strategy was advancing, it was making impact, but it didn't work to move people to a new technology. But what if we take a different approach, right? What if we take instead the approach of upgrade? Instead of asking people to move, we're going to ask them to upgrade their EOA. We'll just make EOAs much, much better, okay? So how do you make an EOA better? And the first thing we're going to go is actually we're going to go outside of the account abstraction world into MPC, which is, again, like an area we're very familiar with. So what is MPC? I'm sure not everybody's here familiar with it, but I will also not go deep into this, won't spend a lot of time. The idea is that there's two things that construct, when people talk about MPC, they usually talk about two things in the process. One is creating the key in a decentralized way. So basically, the regular process that people have when they think about splitting the key into multiple parts is you create a key and then you split it. But then you had the key. What if somebody stole it? Just at that moment of creation, what if somebody was in your machine and stole it? So you don't want that to happen. What you want in an MPC situation is the key to just be created by some communication process, but nobody ever held the full key. And this is kind of like the small magic of MPC. We can go into that, but like it kind of feels like it's not really reasonable, but actually it's very simple also. So it's like an interesting thing. So there is no key. It's not like somebody's holding the private key. There is no private key, but there is a virtualized representation of a private key. And multiple parties hold multiple parts of it, The second thing is the threshold signature scheme. So if we already created a key in this very sophisticated process so that nobody ever had the key, it would be kind of silly if we needed to reconstruct the key to sign, right? Why did we work so hard? So instead, what we're going to have is, again, a communication process between multiple parties where they exchange some information, and by that, they create a signature without anybody getting any access to other parts of the key that they shouldn't have. Okay? So decentralized key generation, decentralized signing. So if you split the key in this method into 3 parties, they were never exposed to any of the other parts. They can never get exposed to them. It's always fully secure one from the other. Okay, so what you want to put on top of this, if we have this process where we split the key, and again, in the Fireblocks situation, think about the fact that it might be Fireblocks as a service providing holding some parts of the key, and then maybe the client is holding other parts of the key. Without their parts of the key, we cannot do anything, because like we don't have a full key. And without our parts of the key, they might not be able to do anything. And again, we can go into backup and other things afterwards, so they still have non-custodial solution, because they do. But the thing that we want to make sure is eventually we want to make sure that this is secure. So we have the security one from the other, but we also want security from the rest of the attackers. So we kind of want to put it in a TE. Now, this kind of became, again, like when people talk about MPC wallets, they automatically assume or should assume that the MPC run inside a trusted execution environment, which you can think about is basically the code runs in some vault. Nobody from the outside world can look in. Nobody from the outside world can change what's happening inside. So we can give basically verifiable attestation that the code that we expected to run is the code that ran, so nobody changed the code, and you cannot look at the secret material that we have in there. So the share that we use for the signing process is not exposed. And again, we can go into this technology, but actually it's became very popular recently, so I'm assuming a lot of people got exposed to TEs already. So we have MPC and TE. We put that on top of our wallet. And what can we get out of it? So what we can get is now there is no single point of failure. You remember we said that the problem with EOAs, it's like one key, and if you lose it, it's one passphrase. There is no passphrase. There is no one key. There's multiple shares that are held in different places. You can think about it as similar to a multi-sig, just not on the chain. It's outside there. It's happening before things hit the chain, right? So there's no single point of failure. And you can do very robust access control. Like one of the problems with access control in smart contract wallets is that now you need to take this code that can be quite complex and you put it on chain. And so what most smart contract wallets did so far, for good reasons, they kept it simple. So you can do simple conditions. So most multi-sigs have like this rule, don't spend over whatever, 500K. In a day maybe, or without getting 5 signatures. But like some of our clients have like 100 rules. For transaction with this contract, if they happen between these hours, if the amount is like this, you have 3 people approving. But if it's a bit more, then you have 7 people approving. And like you can start doing very complex things because it doesn't have to all reside on chain in the same way that like smart contracts do. So you get very robust access control. You get security in depth. We have cryptographic security, we have hardware security, and we have policy security just as a start, right? So we have a lot of layers of security. If you go around one of them, you're not necessarily able to go around another. You have new options of backup and recovery, because one of the cool things about how you split MPC shares, and again, kind of magic, but actually also not very complex when you go into this, you can create multiple permutations of the same key. So I can have the same key split into 5 and split into 3. Okay, so now if I have an operational like keys happening here, I lost one of them, maybe I have an additional split on a different place. So like there's a lot of new backup capabilities that you can bring into this. And you can actually get some privacy, because nobody knows what happens behind your MPC. The MPC produces a regular ECDSA signature, so you get privacy for your internal operations. You don't get privacy on how much money moved and to which address, which is what most people talk about privacy. That's what they're concerned about. But I will tell you, companies are very concerned about, wait a sec, everybody in the world can now see my entire operation book on chain. Like, that's a problem. I cannot operate like that. It can suddenly become dangerous to go somewhere, because people know that I'm the 5th guy that signs a transaction in some situation. You know, so like there's a lot of value in that. Okay, so we added a few things into the mix, right? We improved multi-sig and access control. We improved backup recovery. We added some privacy. Let's continue. Now we're adding 7702. Now again, I won't go into details about how 7702 works, but just in simple terms, you have an EOA, you can delegate to some contract the ability to run code for your EOA. You can think about it simplistically as, now my EOA has code, okay? And this is my code. And there's a lot of specific characteristic to it. You can redelegate, you can cancel delegations. Once you delegate, it sticks until you do one of those operations. You can do the delegation gaslessly, so you don't need to produce the transaction that does the delegation. Somebody else can do it for you. I think those are like the main things. It's been activated recently, right? It's a very new thing out of Pectra. Now, what does this mean in the grand scheme of things? It means that now, if before that we had this 1-and-1, at some point smart contracts had like the full row, now EOAs have the full row as well. And there's two benefits to this. One, it makes EOAs better. The other, it makes EOAs and smart contracts wallets compatible in an interesting way, right? So instead of thinking about the EOA and the smart contract wallet, I can think about a conceptual smart contract-enabled accounts. Now, you're either enabled because you're a smart contract or you're enabled because you delegate it to a smart contract. They have different characteristics on the implementation level, but on the API, they have a lot of the same API. So we can start thinking about it in this way. We can start working with them as this framework implies. I don't know how you implement it, but if you can do this thing, if it quacks like a duck, right? Like I can use it. If I know you can do this thing, I can use it, even though I'm not sure in which way you defined this, if we have the right standards. And we'll talk about it a bit. So, with the introduction of 7702, anything that required the ability to run code is now open to EOAs, right? So now our EOA can also execute gaslessly, because you can just do it with the smart contract, right? If it supports signature verification of a 712 message, great, you can do gasless transactions. I didn't mention earlier that EOAs can do gasless, but only on tokens that support it specifically, right? But smart contracts can do gasless on everything. So this is a big improvement. You can do batching, you can do session keys, you can do all of the cool things that running code on chain allows you. And that creates a very powerful account, right? Now, we see we're getting a lot of the things. I'm sure there are things I can add here, you know, like post-quantum security, things like that, that would be read on the EOA side. So I'm not saying it's the perfect account, but it is very good. It gives us a lot of the things we need, a lot of the things we want. Because what we do, and this is like what I started this with, we're taking different capabilities from different technologies, right? The EOA is the fully compatible thing, right? It's compatible with everything in Ethereum. The entire Ethereum ecosystem was built on EOAs. So having EOA as the base gives us compatibility to everything. Then we're taking MPC. MPC is a security layer. It gives you a lot of security capabilities. It gives you other things as well, but like security is a core thing in what you get out of MPC. This is why institutions love using MPC, because they really care about security. So you get that from the MPC. And then you get the usability from the 7702. You get like the user experience capabilities. You get the improvements in onboarding, in ongoing usage. So you take the best of different technologies, and remember, MPC is not an Ethereum technology, right? It's a generic technology. The same MPC wallet can work on Bitcoin and Ethereum at the same time, which is a different thing, which is very valuable. But I will leave that aside. But I want to talk about the how, okay? So we talked until now about the features we get, right? And why do we get them and how do we get them? But I want to talk a bit about the how, and this, to me, is how I look at this EIP from an architect eyes, right? From like a decision maker, a CTO of a startup, or an established company, trying to think: do I adopt this technology? Should I adopt 4337? Should I adopt 7702? Why? What are the trade-offs? So there's two things about 7702 that are very powerful. Number one, it's backwards compatible. Okay, so when we moved to 4337 accounts, we had to give up a lot of things in that move. Maybe it's a legit decision to give them up, but you do give up things. What do you give up? Well, not give up in this case, right? Like in 7702, what do you get to preserve? So you can still create wallets for free. It doesn't cost you anything to create a wallet. If you want to enable 7702 on the wallet, you will pay for that enablement, but only when you want to use it. So if there's a new blockchain, you just want to receive money in that blockchain, great, no cost. Once you want to start using batching on that blockchain, you'll have to enable 7702. So it's delayed. So it's still free to create wallets on all chains and to maintain wallets on all chains. You create transactions cheaply, right? Because again, you can create a transaction as an EOA and you can create a transaction as a smart contract. You can do both things, but you can still do the cheap option if you want to do that. And that's very important. If you're a company that creates 1 million wallets, suddenly the cost of per wallet creation, per wallet transaction becomes very important. You can do offline signatures. You can use every dApp, even the dApps that don't support smart contracts. You can act as a smart contract when you want to, but you can act as an EOA when you want to. So all dApps support you. You don't have to give up your SBTs. You don't have to exit any DeFi positions you have. And you keep your reputation, right? Like we talk a lot about identity recently, and I've been thinking a lot about the fact my on-chain identity might be useful at some point to prove that like I'm a real person, right? So like I don't have to give up my identity on-chain. I have everything on my EOA. I just got an upgrade with 7702. But this backward compatibility, when we think about EIPs, is so critical because it's so hard to change to a technology that's not backward compatible. But the other, even harder things is changing to a technology that's not future-proof. And this is the other great thing about 7702. And it was almost like, it was very close to this not being the case here, okay? In the conversation about this EIP and making it happen. And I'm very happy that we have this. So the account abstraction ecosystem is new. It's not fully defined. It's not fully standardized. We don't know who the winners are going to be. We don't know which standards will win, which module framework will win, which communication framework will win, which smart contract will win. So it's very scary to choose a technology for your business. If it's just a playground for you, for your wallet, great. But if you're a company and you need to choose a technology, choosing something that might not survive the test of time is very scary. Now, the thing about 7702 is I can activate a wallet on my EOA right now because I'm not concerned. If this wallet goes out, not useful anymore, I'll deactivate it and activate a new smart contract on my wallet, on my EOA. That's very powerful. That gives me a lot of power. It actually, what it gives me is the ability to advance without fear. So that's the fact I can revoke delegations entirely. I can just go back to being an EOA if suddenly I decide this is, I don't know, too much risk for me. And I can choose different delegations for different chains. Who said I want the same smart contracts on all my chains? Like, no, I might want a different smart contract on the same address. I just use different capabilities. I can also do gradual upgrades. And this is actually something we at Fireblocks, as we adopt this technology, we believe in that. We don't think that with a new technology like EIP-7702, what we should do is implement everything we dreamt about, right? Because we'll probably not hit all the right notes. So we're actually implementing gradually. And the fact you can change implementations without restriction, without caring if we kept the same parameters inside the contract, that is very good for us. And that is actually what allows us to be part of that ecosystem, right? One of the problems with account abstraction adoption until a year ago was a lot of companies did not participate. It was an entirely new ecosystem. All of the players were small. All of the players were new. They were inventing very cool things, not being used by a lot of people. But now you can see what's happening, right? 7702 came up. Uniswap is doing things. MetaMask is doing things. Fireblocks is doing things. All of the big companies in the space are adopting this because this actually allows us to play this game. This allows us to be participants, and that's important when you want to get adoption. So I am a firm believer that we will get a lot of adoption out of it. Now, I do need to wrap up, so I'll be quick about it. There's philosophical conversation about account abstraction. Is 4337 more account abstraction than 7702? Is an EOA with a delegation still even an EOA? There's like a lot of, it's fun conversations. I'm always happy to engage in them. I have a lot of opinions. I'll spare you from them. I think what matters about this, and this is maybe one of the biggest lessons that I hope we as an ecosystem learn, EIP-7702 prioritized the user. Okay, over some technology decisions, right? Like it didn't solve the key rotation, it didn't solve post-quantum, it just prioritized users. And it gave the users the thing they need, the thing they want. And I think that's a good North Star when we're thinking about such EIPs, alongside thinking about other technologies you're going to be interconnecting with. That's it. Thank you very much. You can reach out if this area interests you, and please check out our awesome EIP-7702 GitHub. We're trying to make it easy for people to get into this technology. Thank you.
Thank you for the talk. I'm a bit curious about the combination of T's and MPC. It was not clear to me why you're using T's anyways.
Why what, sorry?
Why you're using T's here?
So like, if I understand correctly the question, I'll repeat it. Like, why do we need both, right? Why do you need MPC and EIP-7702?
No. Why do you need T's and MPC for your solution initially that you mentioned?
Oh, why you need T's? Okay. So you run an MPC. MPC process defends parties from one another, right? That's secure MPC. The idea is you have two parties. They can interact between them in a secure way so that in the communication, they do not expose any information they shouldn't expose. But what happens if there's a malicious actor on your machine, right? I don't want that actor to be able to get information. TEE allows me to put this code who is already protected from the other party to basically have it protected from you. So if somebody hacked your device, you have malware, you have those kind of things, if it runs in a good trusted execution environment, secure enclave, you don't have access to it, right? The security model should be, if you have root access, you should still not be able to access my information.
I see. So you do not use T's for verifiability in this case. You just try to isolate stuff. And
so this is the security part.
Okay.
Another thing you can do with it, and like we do with it, is from an aggregator perspective, let's call it, right? Somebody who runs the process, you want to make sure they run proper process. Now, generally speaking, even if they don't, they can't do much because the MPC doesn't allow it, but you still want to verify. You still want to make sure that the thing that is running should be running is running, so that's like another way. You can basically check attestations. Now, different TEs give you different attestations, but that's like very deep into this. Like, Nitro versus like, SGX, they have different guarantees. But that's like very deep into like specifics.
Okay.
So, thank you. And we have time for one more question or comment. Anybody? Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. Do you have any implementation of that, like the MPC with T and like the EIP-7702?
For somebody who uses it, like for a recommendation for what, sorry?
No, like an implementation, not a recommendation.
Oh,
or it's just like idea that you are sharing here.
So there's a lot. Like our ecosystem has a lot of MPC wallet infrastructures, right? A lot of them are targeting more the institutional side of things, more towards companies. Some of them do target also, like their target audience is also what we call retail, like the end user. But actually from the MPC wallets for retail, I'm not sure if anybody implemented 7702 already. There might be, but I'm not 100% sure. On the institutional side, again, we are implementing those things, and we're going to be, like our approach is basically we're adding more and more features to our product over time with 7702. So constantly like enabling more capabilities as time advances. But again, to try out as a retail, I'm not sure which one is which one I can recommend right now.
Okay, thank you.